Our next speaker is Bill Holmes. Bill's tenure at Stanford predates Helmut. Bill was here doing his bachelor's and master's in the 1960s. Bill did his bachelor's and master's at Stanford a while ago, and but has remained very active in the Stanford community ever since, Bloom Center, etc. Bill and Helmut first met shortly after Helmut arrived on campus, and Bill was down here speaking at a seminar. He had a little homemade shake table.
Yes, that was the first time.
Yeah. So, anyway, let me bring this up.
While he's doing that, you shot me down because I was going to straighten out the Krawinkler factor story. That story, or that factor, is so famous that totally independently of Ron telling the story, Mark Saunders told me that story last week. We were just talking about you, and he says, "Oh, there's this funny story about 1.85." So I was going to put that in my talk. Now I can't.
Who was it?
You. Well, Mark didn't remember the 3.0 part. He just went. He told me that your position was that there should not be a decimal point because we don't know anything that accurately. So it should just be 2, not 2.0, which was 2. Anyway, I don't think hardly anybody has looked at the abstracts, which is good, because my abstract is talking about tracking the parallel paths of practice in the Bay Area and what Holmes was doing. And so I did a bunch of research trying to make some interesting story, and it kind of blew up in my face. So I went away from that. But while I was doing the research, primarily through SEAONC, that's S-E-A-O-N-C, we call it SEAONC, that's Structural Engineers in Northern California, I came up with a lot of fodder that I thought would be good for the talk, so we'll go that way. First of all, to put Helmut's career in some sort of historical context of what we were worrying about in the design world, and prehistorically we had to put a steel frame into buildings over 160 feet tall, so I didn't put a date on that, but interestingly, just about the time I was coming out of school, Bloom, Newmark, and Corning, which basically suggested that concrete might be ductile, could be made ductile, came out. And at that time, Helmut was getting out of college in Austria. And in 1968, the code actually suggested, most people say that it was 76 when ductile concrete moment frames came into being, but actually in 1968, the code said, not only can you use a steel frame for buildings over 160 feet, but any equivalent frame. They didn't tell you how to make it equivalent, but the suggestion was there based upon the Bloom, Newmark, and Corning book that there might be an alternative. So as you track down, you can see that in '71, the San Fernando earthquake happened. That was about when Helmut was getting his PhD. In '74, ATC3 started, which was a real big deal and has continued to be a big deal. And he was a lecturer at that time and becoming an assistant professor, and I'm going to mention about these dates early there a little bit later. And finally, in 1976, ductile concrete frames were actually put in code. The only reason I mention this concrete frame part is that in the profession, this was a big controversy. So it put a focus on steel as well as concrete, because the concrete people were pushing moment frames, and the steel people were saying, "Gee, we had this market all tied up before. Now it's competitive, so we got to worry about moment frames." It was a big issue in the profession. In 1977, and actually Mark Saunders just mentioned something to me about all the pictures that Ron showed might not be special because some of them might be K1 frames. But in 1977, there was a big controversy because in the good old days before R factors, we had K factors, real simple, 0.67, 0.81, and 1.33. Boy, those are the days. again, the boys in the South seemed to do this a lot, and there was always arguments between structural engineers in Northern California and Southern California, which Helmut took part in later. In '79, it was interesting. I was going through all the newsletters. There was a seminar on existing buildings, but had nothing much to do with Helmut, but the federal program on existing buildings did not start until 1985. So we were worrying about existing buildings long before FEMA had that brilliant idea. Helmut was on the EERI delegation to Tangshan in 1980. In 1979, the Building Seismic Safety Council was created basically to take care of ATC3, which had then been published, and everyone was afraid it was going to go on a shelf and be forgotten about. And little did we know, we being the structural engineers of California, that this sort of innocent formation in 1979 eventually sort of took the power away from the structural engineers of California in terms of writing seismic codes in California, because the NERC provisions have kind of taken over from the movement. 1985, several people have mentioned the Mexico City earthquake. I changed this box right here just the other night. I have now a steel failure for Helmut in 1985 and a steel failure for Helmut squared in '94. What I had there before was Hog Heaven and Hog Heaven squared. But I figured that may not translate very well, so I changed it to something a little more clear. In '85, the federal existing building program starts. In '88, we finally changed the blue book to kind of look like ATC3, but we couldn't go to strength design, so we had these things called RW factors. And it goes on. All these other things after Helmut became a professor at Stanford, I'll discuss later. That's what TBDL means. Of course, the Northridge earthquake occurred, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the SAC work, of course, and 92 to 97 was a big push to come up with a FEMA program for existing buildings that Helmut was involved in, and Ron and I and many others. That eventually became ASC 41 standard. And of course in '93 was the first performance-based engineering action plan that was done actually by EERC. Helmut was involved in that. In '97 it was, the UBC came out, and it really moved towards the NERC provisions that Bob Bachman and Ron had a lot to do with trying to make those two codes more similar. And in '97, another action plan on performance-based engineering that was done by EERI, because FEMA claimed that the first one done by EERC was too research-oriented, so they had to do it again to be apparently more practical. That one sort of formed the basis of ADC 58, which is going on now, but it's been also changed. In '97 and ongoing, Charlie Kircher had a lot to do with creating a performance goal in the provisions of actually explicitly saying collapse is what we're trying to prevent in the very big earthquake MCE, and subsequent to that in performance-based engineering, we now know the collapse, as we heard earlier, might contribute a lot to the dollar loss, but it certainly contributes most to casualties, so we're all rushing to try to figure out how to make the collapse better. And finally, this last year, the California Building Code finally adopted the IBC, which is a direct descendant of ATC3. So from '79 to 2007, that's really quick adoption of technology.